So I'm going to move on next to the switch installation on the PCB. And I've looked over again the directions up on YouTube on the High Nibbles web content. And what we need here are the bolts, the nuts, and the 9mm spacers. If you remember or not, when I did the unboxing, I went ahead and just secured these as groups. And I know if I don't put the short spacers back in the little container here, they will roll off the desk, never to be seen again. Kind of gotten used to that's how the world works. So I've secured all of this. I'm going to need 8 little pieces of tape. I'm just ripping off small pieces of the blue painter's tape to hold the bolts in place. 3, 6, 7, 8. And each bolt goes through the plexi and just gets a piece of tape to hold it in place. Again, don't want those spacers to roll away. Like I said, I know how it works. If the spacer gets a chance to roll off the table, it will roll off the table. That's just how the world works. And there's one trying to roll around. One more. Flip this over. Actually, I'll flip it over this way. Oh, I need a couple pieces of wire stuck there. I need to put the spacers on. And have I already managed to lose one? Honestly, it never fails. It never fails. Here it is, all the way here at the edge of the desk. Okay. Now the PCB can be laid down on. It only goes on one way. I've got a fair amount of, I think I've talked about it before, warp in the board. This front plexi may be enough to pull that out. But I think I'm going to go ahead, I prepped this ahead of time, and I'm going to go ahead and just add some additional stiffness just to hold everything nice and flat for the switch installation. Put those spacers on there, and I prepped this ahead of time. It's just a piece of leftover angled aluminum. I've drilled some holes in it, which hopefully are close enough they'll fit over these. And I'm just going to use that as kind of a stiffener in the assembly here to hold everything together. Is that a 1/4 inch drive? It would be nice if it was, but it's not. It's a little bigger than a 1/4. Of course, can't pick the nuts up. So we'll get these nuts started. So you don't have to do a stiffener like I have there. It's just kind of the anal retentive nature of me to say I've got a piece of scrap aluminum. I can do that just to help hold everything nice and straight for the switches. I don't want flexing of the board causing, you know, slight switch misalignment. If it did, it would probably be so minor you wouldn't be able to see it, but that's just kind of how my brain works. Of course, it makes it a little bit harder to start these nuts. Once the heavy plexiglass is in the sandwich for the back, that'll pull any warpage of the board, you know, flush. This is just a temporary here just to keep things nice and level during soldering. So this has all been started. Let me dig out the socket set. Figure out what size those are. Let's see about driving those all up snug. Again, this is really overkill, but this tends to be how I do things. Aside. I've got this nice little sandwich now. It's nice and rigid. Come on. The tape that leaves no residue behind is actually leaving, or my finger maybe is leaving bits of residue behind. So that is find a driver that'll hopefully fit in those. And we'll just tighten them up a tiny bit more. Just going to put a little bit more torque through these just to cinch them up. Don't want to be aggressively tight. So this way I know the board is as level as I'm going to get it. And that way when the switches go in, I know they'll be as square as possible, and that's really what I'm after. So let me get the other materials back in the box here. And we will pull out the switches, fire up the soldering station. I think I'm going to move the solder to the other side of the bench. It kept getting in the way. I kept pulling it across this way in all the previous videos. And we can start to mount some switches and see what we get. Made it look easy in the video. I'm kind of struggling to get it in square and flush. Get this all centered back out here where it's in shot. I feel like those should seat a little deeper than they are. Okay, that one dropped all the way down through well. The switches really are the magic in this. They really capture the IMSAI 8080 front panel look and feel. And of course the artwork on the bezel and everything is really nice as well. I know they've ended up at different heights. So I'm going to attempt to push them all down to where the gap between the switch body and the PCB is identical, or as identical as I can get it. They feel reasonably straight across. I've of course got the spacer that he supplied to kind of help hold these in alignment. That one's a little bit lower than the other ones. Again, I could quickly become too much of a perfectionist here trying to get these perfect. They're never going to be absolutely perfect. I really want the alignment as close as I can get it before I put this guy on. Now he used rubber bands to hold this together. I don't know that I have two large rubber bands here. I actually just found one on the bench. one more time. You can see down in there, they all look pretty level and flush. The bodies are square down the bodies. That's probably about as good as I'm going to get that first set. Let's go ahead and do some soldering here. I might actually want to go with a slightly bigger tip. The dwell time does matter. You don't want to spend, a long period of heat time on each switch. You want to keep it to just what's required to do the job and nothing more. It's possible to kind of meld everything up into the body of the switch if you're dwelling too long. I've gone with a bigger tip here because I'll get really quick heat transfer and a nice pool of solder. Don't want to touch the rubber band. And so with a little bit larger tip there, as you saw, those wetted and flowed really quickly. They all look reasonable along that axis. Let's pull the rubber band off. Just see what they look like neutral. They're pretty square. That one might be a little low. I'm going to see if I can move it just a tiny bit. That might be better. They're never going to be perfect. It's just reality. Actually, I think we can just finish soldering the way these are. Try to keep my hands out of the way here of the camera. Good quality tools make the difference. Not that I'm saying you should go out and buy a JBC soldering station. They are very spendy. But I do enough kit assembly and repair work that it was a good investment for me. I struggled for years with inexpensive soldering pencils and inexpensive, quote, soldering stations. And it's a great tool. Like I say, it's definitely not for everybody. Now we're going to go with 4 more blue. And of course, these 2 banks of 8 are toggle switches. And the momentary switches go over in the bank of the 6 control switches, the 1 power and the 5 control. Why some of these are just being so stubborn. Walk down through. There's slight differences in the manufacturing. It's part of it where, you know, every switch is not an exact clone for the lead spacing, etc. of the others. It's just a reality of manufacturing. Okay, I want these to all be about the same height as the other bank. And they are certainly being stubborn to get there. Wow. Just trying to get reasonable alignment across all of them. That looks pretty square. And we'll put the little alignment. What are you caught on? Check them for height again. Not perfect. Probably as good as I'm going to get it. I'll try to keep my hands out of the camera here. Looks pretty good. So we can finish soldering those. No matter where I put my left arm, it's in the way. Oh, it's hard working at these weird angles. Almost there. You know, when I did the kit assembly of Oscar's PIDP 11, absolutely beautiful kit. Just an amazing piece of technology, you know, brought together by software and his hardware and custom switches and all the stuff he did. And it's a beautiful, beautiful kit and build. This is, I think, is every bit as beautiful. Again, it's bringing together software and hardware and stuff from various people. It's all kind of brought together here. I've got the ESP32 plugged in through all of this, and that's really not a good idea. And I got the compact flash card in the holder as well. Even after all the warnings up on the high bites, or the high nibbles website, I still... So it's going to go red, blue, red, blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Red, blue, red, blue, red. So it's going to be blue all the way over to this side. These are momentary. They return to center. But these are toggle. They hold their position. Red or blue, red, blue. Boy, does that look like an IMSAI front panel. Red, blue, and I will save the power switch for last. That one could be in a little deeper. That one could be in a little deeper. Those look pretty straight. Solder the center pins, take the rubber band tension off, look one more time for alignment. Up under the rubber band here, which makes this interesting. There's a little more mechanical play in these, so they will be potentially not quite as square across. He talks about that in the video as well. See where they return to. I want to shift this one slightly. If I can get it. Shift slightly. It really didn't move. I'll try that again. I think that's as good as it's going to get. It's not perfect. Mechanical switches, it's not meant to be perfect. Oops, don't have the power switch in place yet. It'll be the last one we add. And of course the power switch is this guy without the paddle on him. Let's see if we can get him to line up. Go down in about the same height as the others. That looks pretty good. Ooh. Piece of tape covered in component leads. Let's solder this last guy up. And I think that pretty much completes the electronics assembly for the unit. I should be able to I have to put the ESP32 back in. We'll power this up and have a play with the front panel in the next upcoming video. Test from there. But there we are. Power, control, high bite, low bite, high nibble up here, or the high nibble for this bite here. Looking really nice. So move on next here. Actually, in the next video, we'll actually apply some power here and give this guy a test.